Where we used to really encourage founders to, set up as many trusts, like set up trusts for each of the kids and kind of maximize that. But increasingly, the founders who are going to exit for say like 40 million, that's where I really try and push them to consider closely whether, because if let's say you're going to exit for 40 million and you have 3 kids and you set up 3 trusts, you're giving, like when you do that QSBS stacking, you got to give it away.
It's not your money anymore. This is not your money to spend or control.
Yeah. Right. And you can't go out and
buy a big decision
with that money. Like that's theirs.
Right? Yeah.
And so in that hypothetical, I pay 0 federal income tax, but I've given away 3/4 of my wealth.
Yeah.
Right?
And so, yeah. And this is where sometimes it's like, it's weird because we both work in the tax space. You don't want to let the tax tail wag your dog. You want to fundamentally think of like, one, how much do me and my spouse want for our lifetimes? Do we have an idea of how much we want to give to our kids, right? Like when we want to give it to them. And these things, they can be hard. The older you are, I think it's probably a little bit easier, but particularly when you're young. And one of the things about the tech industry is you're seeing more wealth created earlier in life. And so there's less certainty in terms of what you want out of life, what that means from a financial standpoint. Your kids are young. Do you want to give them this money? There's all these things that are a little bit harder to answer. So short answer, though, is on QSBS stacking is there's a kind of optimizing this from a financial standpoint, which is, or here, I'll give you a very tactical answers. You need to, if you want to do QSBS stacking, you have to gift the shares to a trust or another person or entity before you agree to sell the shares. That's a very tactical thing of, if you've agreed to sell the shares, the IRS is going to tax you. If you gift it away before then you can get additional exemptions and get QSBS stacking. Before that time when you gift it is like these trade-offs of, the kind of the personal versus the financial and that type of, where there's no perfect answer, I'd say. But typically what I see is people want to get their comfortable on their own financial standpoint first before they start to do gifted outside of their estate to kids.
Right. That's right. Like plan for yourself first, and then do the rest of it. So if you're going to sell for 100 million, do the trusts for sure for each of the kids. If you're going to sell for 50, 40, right? Part of this as well is like building a good team, right? Most founders, you got to make sure you have a good CPA. You got to make sure you have a good financial advisor, all those things, like work with somebody like Manny or me, like whoever, right? Like there's people who are super sophisticated in this space that can help you think through the problems. There's not like a one size fits all.
Yeah, exactly. You want a framework to think about these things because your answer is going to be somewhat unique, but you need to understand what those trade-offs are and how that fits into what you want.
Can we talk about, like, because we're just going to go off into these rabbit holes. Let's talk about this tax-free exchanges. This is super cool, right? Yes. This is again 1202H says that if you exchange QSBS for non-QSBS, you can preserve your QSBS shares, and your holding period keeps clicking along, right? So assume that I'm a startup founder, right? And I'm at year 3, okay? And Microsoft comes along and says, "Hey, Christopher, we want to buy your shares for $10 million, and we'll give you all cash, or we'll give you Microsoft shares." Okay.
Yes.
If they give me all cash, I'm at year 3. I got to do the rollover or whatever, right? But in contrast, if we do a tax-free merger, right? This is the tax-free exchange, where in year 3 I exchange my startup co-shares for Microsoft shares. 1202H4 says those Microsoft shares become QSBS up to the $10 million merger consideration. And so I can ride out the clock in the Microsoft shares. So I've totally de-risked, right? And then at year 5, let's say the Microsoft shares have appreciated to 12 million. The first 10 million of them is QSB. I sell, I can exclude, I got to pay tax on the delta. So this is for founders thinking about the deal structure. That tax-free reorganization is unlocked a lot of
cash is not sometimes king is another way to cash is. So another very related thing here is QSBS. So this is tied to QSBS rollovers. That's essentially, you can preserve the exchange.